Have you ever noticed how close your neighbors really are? Just a few feet of drywall, a fence, maybe a shared wall. But sometimes, what happens on the other side of that wall isn't just noise. Sometimes it's a secret that doesn't want to be heard. I've been living in this neighborhood for almost 10 years, and until recently, I never thought twice about the people who lived behind us. Quiet, middle-class suburb, families, dogs, sprinklers, the usual. Then, about 4 years ago, this new couple moved into the house directly behind ours. Thing is, I've never once seen the wife. Not once. No lights from their upstairs bedroom, no gardening, no grocery bags, nothing. Just the husband. He's maybe in his late 50s, early 60s, tall but hunched, with greasy gray hair that falls past his collar. He's always wearing this faded green bomber jacket, like something out of the 80s, and the same pair of beige slacks, rain or shine. At first, I thought he was just one of those lonely retirees who likes to walk his dog. Every morning, 6:30 a.m., there he is. Slow pace, short leash, same path along the fence line separating our yards. And every evening when I come home, it's the same scene again. The only difference is that now he doesn't just walk, he watches. Our kitchen has a large bay window facing the backyard, and every time I grab a drink of water before heading out, I can feel him there. Just standing on the other side, staring. Sometimes he even stops right along the property line and pretends to adjust the dog's collar, but I know he's watching the window. One Saturday afternoon, my brother came over with his kids. We were sitting on the porch, about to walk to the park for some basketball. The man walked up, dog in tow, and stopped near our driveway. He smiled, or tried to, and started asking my niece and nephew questions. Weird ones. Stuff like, "Do you like to play in the woods?" Or, "Do you ever sneak out at night?" I interrupted and asked, "Hey, what's your dog's name?" He hesitated, blinked, then said something like, "Oh, she doesn't really have one," and went right back to talking to the kids. My brother asked again, jokingly this time, "What do you call her then?" The man just chuckled, a dry, broken sound, and said, "She knows who she is." That was the first time I noticed the dog didn't have a collar. After that day, we started keeping our distance. My mom, though, likes to tan in the backyard during summer. She has this lounge chair near the fence where the bushes are a bit thinner. She told me she's caught him peeking through that gap more than once. The first time, she thought she imagined it, maybe just a shadow. But the second time, she made eye contact. She said he didn't flinch, didn't even pretend to look away. Just stared, blank-faced, like he wasn't even there. That was enough for her. She stopped tanning outside. I wish that was the end of it, but it got stranger. There's a small workout room at the back of our house with a door that opens to the yard. Some nights I step outside to smoke a bowl. It's quiet, calm, the kind of peace you only get after midnight. One night, it was raining. That soft, steady kind of rain that muffles everything. I cracked the door open, took a hit, and that's when I heard it. Whistling. A low, broken tune. It wasn't a song, just random notes. It was close, like just on the other side of the fence. At first, I thought maybe it was someone walking their dog late, but the longer I listened, the less human it sounded. It was off, too slow, too deliberate. Between each note, there was this rasping breath, like someone struggling to breathe through water. I froze. Then the whistling stopped, and the dog barked, once, sharp and angry. I slammed the door, locked it, and went around the house checking every window. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear the rain anymore. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination. Maybe he was walking late. Maybe the sound echoed weird through the rain. But when I looked outside, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Footprints. Bare footprints. Not from shoes, not from boots, from bare feet, leading from the fence to the edge of our back porch. I followed them with my eyes until they just stopped. No turn, no return prints. Like whoever made them had vanished mid-step. A few days later, I saw him again. Broad daylight this time. He was walking that same dog, still no collar, still that same blank look. And when I drove past, I could feel his eyes on me. I glanced at my rearview mirror as I turned the corner. He was still staring. The thing is, he doesn't just look at you. It feels like he's looking through you, like he's memorizing you. I told a few neighbors about it, and one of them, an older lady who's lived here for decades, told me that the previous owner of that house had died suddenly. Heart attack, they said. Alone. Took days before anyone found him. She said the house sat empty for a while until this man moved in. Said he bought it for cheap. But here's the part that still messes with me. When she described the previous owner, she said he had thin gray hair, a bit overweight, and used to wear an old green jacket when he walked his dog. I laughed it off when she told me, said she must have just mixed things up. But when I looked at the property records later that night, the previous owner's photo was still there. Same face, same eyes, same man. I don't know who or what lives behind my fence now, but every morning, 6:30 a.m., I still see him walking that same invisible dog, moving slow along the line that divides our yards. And every time, before he disappears out of sight, he turns his head and stares straight at my window. I live in one of those quiet, cookie-cutter neighborhoods you see in real estate ads. Clean sidewalks, trimmed lawns, the kind of place where people wave when they see you drive by. Midwest, middle class, nothing fancy, nothing scary. The kind of place where nothing bad is supposed to happen. At least, that's what I used to think. There are about 150 homes in our subdivision, and most of the neighbors are great, polite, friendly, the kind of people who borrow your ladder and actually return it. Except for one family. They lived right next door. From the first day they moved in, something about them felt off. The husband was thin and twitchy, always wearing a torn sleeveless shirt, pacing around the yard smoking. The wife was loud, chain-smoking too, with that raspy voice that carried across the street. And their teenage son, well, mean, doesn't even begin to describe him. He had this vacant, glazed-over stare, the kind you see in mugshots. For years, they were a problem. Small things at first. They'd borrow our garden hose and never bring it back, or dump their trash into our bin when theirs overflowed. But it escalated. One night, I caught their kid smashing our mailbox with a baseball bat. I shouted at him, and he just stood there smiling, like it was funny. The next morning, they'd spray painted over our fence with some kind of weird graffiti, half letters, half symbols. We called the police a dozen times over the years. Noise complaints, vandalism, suspected theft. Once, when our electricity bill doubled, the power company found an illegal cable line buried along the fence. They'd been siphoning power from our meter. The officer who came that day looked at me and just sighed, like he'd seen it all before. By last summer, they'd stopped pretending to care. Their yard turned into a jungle. The grass was waist-high, the paint on the house peeled in long flakes, and the smell, that smell, started seeping into the air. Something between rotten meat and moldy trash. Neighbors started whispering. No one saw them take out garbage anymore. No mail, no packages. Windows stayed closed, blinds drawn all the time. The local HOA tried to intervene, but every time someone from the office went over, they'd be greeted by barking dogs and shouted threats. Then, one afternoon, it all ended. The sheriff's department showed up. 4 cruisers, a tow truck, and 2 animal control vans. The family had been officially evicted after months of unpaid rent and property damage. The entire block came out to watch. The husband tried to argue, but he looked defeated. The wife was screaming, pacing in the driveway, swearing at everyone. Their kid just stood there chewing on something, expression blank. When they were finally forced out, the police taped the house shut. 2 days later, an officer I'd gotten to know, Officer Daniels, came by to follow up on the case. He told me I wouldn't believe what they'd found inside. I laughed it off, thinking maybe drugs, maybe hoarded junk. But when he saw I wasn't getting it, he offered to let me see for myself. He probably shouldn't have. The smell hit before I even stepped inside. It wasn't just bad. It was wrong, like the air itself had rotted. Daniels handed me a small mask, but it didn't help much. The floors were black with grime. Every wall had holes punched through it, as if someone had gone room to room, tearing the place apart. Wires hung from the ceilings. They'd ripped out every bit of copper they could find. Light fixtures, outlets, pipes, all gone. But that wasn't the worst part. When we got to the kitchen, Daniels pointed to the floor. There were brown stains smeared across the tiles, and the smell of human waste was overwhelming. I realized then that they hadn't been using the plumbing for a long time. Buckets, corners, anywhere. It was everywhere. And then I noticed the silence. The kind of silence that makes your heartbeat sound too loud. We moved toward the basement door. The steps creaked under our weight, and the air grew colder, damper. My flashlight caught movement near the floor, not a live movement, but a shifting of something as it fell apart. That's when I saw them. Piles. Dozens of small, rotting shapes scattered across the concrete. At first, I thought they were toys, old stuffed animals. But as the light caught the outlines, my stomach turned. Tiny paws, fur, teeth. The unmistakable curve of skulls. Dogs. Maybe cats, too. I couldn't tell anymore. They'd bred dogs for a while, that much we knew. Sold them out of their garage. But somewhere along the line, they must have stopped feeding them, stopped caring. Daniels said they'd found the same thing upstairs, in closets, in hallways, piles of carcasses, half covered by rags or trash bags. I stood there, frozen, staring into the dark corner of that basement. For a split second, I thought I saw something move. A faint shuffle, like a tail twitching. I pointed my flashlight, but there was nothing. Still, I could have sworn I heard a faint whimper, like a dog crying behind a wall. Daniels told me they were done searching. I couldn't stay another second. When we stepped back outside, the daylight felt strange, too bright, too clean. They gutted the house that month. New drywall, new flooring, new paint. A for sale sign went up soon after, and within weeks, a young couple bought it. 2 kids, golden retriever, the whole picture-perfect thing. They're nice people. Polite. Quiet. But sometimes, late at night, when I walk my dog past their driveway, mine starts growling. Not barking, just this low, uneasy growl. And every single time he turns toward the basement window of that house. I've never heard a sound come from there, not once. But when the wind is still and the night is heavy, there's this faint smell that hangs in the air. Something rotten that no amount of fresh paint can hide. And every time I think about those poor animals left behind, and the way that house felt when the door first opened, like something still lived there. Something that never left. I've lived in this townhouse for almost 6 years now. It's a simple, narrow place. Beige siding, small porch, a single parking spot. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. What I didn't realize when I moved in, though, was how thin the nights could feel when the world around you is dead quiet. On one side of my home, there's a 20-inch concrete firewall separating me from my neighbor, or at least, that's what the builder claimed. Thick enough to block out voices, music, even arguments. Supposedly. Except it doesn't. My neighbor is a woman in her 40s. I don't know her well. We've only exchanged polite hellos when taking the trash out or collecting mail. She's quiet, withdrawn, keeps to herself. Nothing about her ever struck me as odd. Until the first night I heard her scream. It was around 2 a.m., the kind of hour where the darkness feels heavy, like it's pressing down on your chest. I was half asleep when the sound came. A guttural, blood-curdling scream that tore through the wall like it wasn't even there. It didn't sound like pain. It sounded inhuman. I shot out of bed, heart racing, thinking someone was being attacked. But after a few seconds, it stopped. Silence. Then faint sobbing. I called out, "Are you okay?" through the wall. No response. Just the creak of a floorboard, and then nothing. The next morning, I saw her outside, watering her small patch of lawn like nothing had happened. She looked calm, peaceful even. When I asked if everything was all right, she smiled and said, "Oh, I sleep pretty hard." Sorry if I was loud, I didn't know what to say to that. Over the next few weeks, the screams came back. Not every night, just enough that I started sleeping with one ear open. Sometimes it was a single shout, other times full sentences, angry, desperate ones. "No, please, don't touch me. You said you'd stop." They were so clear, so sharp, that I could almost imagine what she was dreaming of. Then, one night, I heard laughter. Not the kind you hear in joy, but the kind that makes your stomach drop. High-pitched, cruel, echoing through the wall like it was coming from the next room. That night, I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I saw 2 police cars parked out front. The neighbor on her other side, an older man, had called in another welfare check. He said she'd been screaming for nearly an hour straight. The officers knocked, spoke to her, then left. Same story every time. She was fine. I learned later from another neighbor that she'd had a rough life, an abusive marriage, hospital visits, a restraining order. She lived alone now. They said the night terrors started after she got divorced. That made sense, I guess. But sense didn't make it any easier to hear. Weeks turned into months. I got used to the noise, or tried to. But some nights were different. Some nights the screams didn't sound like they were coming from her unit. They sounded like they were inside mine. It happened about a month ago. The rain was pounding against the windows, thunder rolling in the distance. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to whispering. It was so soft, I thought it was part of a dream. Then the whisper turned into a low, choked sob. It was her voice. I sat up and listened. It wasn't coming through the wall this time. It was closer, right outside my bedroom door. I froze, didn't move, didn't breathe. Then a single word. "Please." It was right next to me. I turned on the lamp so fast I nearly broke it. The room was empty. The house was still. But the moment the light hit the walls, I heard her scream again, muffled, far away this time, like it had snapped back into her unit. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I ran into her in the parking lot. She looked exhausted, pale skin, dark circles under her eyes. I almost didn't say anything, but she smiled first. "You look like you didn't sleep," she said. I laughed nervously. "Yeah, neither did you, I guess." Her smile faltered for a second. Then she said quietly, "I don't dream anymore. At least, I don't remember them." Something in her voice made me believe that wasn't true. That weekend, she had another episode, louder this time. I called the police myself, told them I thought she might hurt herself. They showed up, knocked for 15 minutes, then left again. Said she refused help. The next morning, the hallway smelled faintly of something burnt. Not smoke exactly, more like the scent of hot metal or scorched air. And for the first time, I noticed something strange. The wall that separated our bedrooms had a thin, dark crack running down the middle. I don't remember it being there before. That night, the house was quiet. No screams, no whispers, nothing. A week passed, then another. Finally, I asked the neighbor on her other side if she was okay. He just frowned and said, "Didn't you hear?" She moved out 2 weeks ago. But here's the thing, I hadn't heard. No trucks, no movers, no goodbye. Her windows are still closed, blinds still drawn. The mailbox still has her name on it. And sometimes, when I lie awake at night, I hear faint scratching behind the wall. Not loud, just enough to remind me she's still there. Or at least, something is. We all live next to someone. We share walls, fences, streets. But not all of us share peace. Sometimes the scariest things aren't in haunted houses. They're right next door. If you made it this far, thank you for staying through the storm. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Mr. Rainy Night, and tell me in the comments which story kept you up tonight. Until next time, sleep well and listen closely, because you never really know who or what lives beside you.